What does it take to go from X to expert? When I graduated from college, I thought I knew everything there was to know about drugs. As a pharmacist, we were trained to be a drug expert. The main thing about street drugs is just say no. I liked being a drug expert so much that I wanted to be an expert in anything else that was involved with life. In order to advance, of course, my aspiration exceeded my advanced capabilities. However, it got to the point that if I ever walked into a room and people knew me, they would get up and walk out. Then one day I heard, Lisa, I have got to set you straight and let you advance and know what an expert really is. Of course, do tell. Then he said, I'll never forget it. X is the unknown quantity, and spurt is a drip under pressure. Well, I wasn't about to let that sarcastic remark put me down. I came up with my own empowering version of that definition. It goes like this: an expert is a person that never allows pressure to water down their responsibility to reconcile all unknown quantities. That is important when you are a pharmacist. You can't believe how many people come into the drugstore and want to get their stuff earlier, especially controlled substances like morphine, stimulants, or sleeping meds, you name it. They don't want to wait. They'll alter the date. Sometimes they falsify their identity or the quantity. That is when I want to be the drug expert that I am supposed to be. I never let them pressure me, and they really will, even at gunpoint. I never let them pressure me into watering down my responsibility to reconcile all unknown quantities. That is me. In time, I got promoted. I was going to all those little towns in Northern California. Some people, however, do not want to work in those small, remote towns. I considered it a privilege because when you come from a big city, people naturally think you are an expert, but they would ask me some of the dumbest questions, like, where do you live? Now, you don't need to be an expert to answer that question. To me, it was obvious. I live in my body. That is why I take care of it, because if I don't have a body, I have no place to live. They begin to pay better attention to their own health and advance themselves. My dedication to being an expert outside of the drug field, of course, took me all over the world. Suriname, South America, was with the Oceanic Society. We were doing research on the reproductive life of sea turtles. Another time we went to Japan to help families speak English. They taught me how to make sushi. I became a sushi expert. My favorite place was when I went to a little town called London. London was where I went to become a relationship expert. Can you imagine being married to the same person for over 70 years, like Queen Elizabeth did? Queen Elizabeth is my relationship role model. She is also my namesake. Several years ago, I changed my name. I named myself after Queen Elizabeth. Now, in those days, when I did change my name, you had to write your name out with a writing utensil. It was not like today where you just push a button and the signature shows up. It took forever for me to write my name, so I finally dropped the word queen. Then, even using Elizabeth, it took forever. So I had to shorten the whole thing to Lisa. Now, when you see the name Lisa, you know that it stands for Queen Elizabeth. Winston Churchill was her first prime minister. And then there were 15 of our United States presidents that she reigned through, beginning with Truman in 1952 to Donald Trump. She got along with all of them. So inspiring. Our time in London was opposite to the winter solstice. It was late spring, and my two girlfriends and I were chaperoning 18 high school students that were singing in a choir. We made those kids make sure that they did not lose their wallets, backpacks, have to call their parents because they lost their money. It was so wonderful to see what a relationship expert could do for those kids. They would blossom for us for that entire week. The first day was the most memorable. We did some sightseeing at museums, art galleries, and cathedrals, then off to rehearsal. We took a break just before our first concert. Then we had a reception. By that time, it was well after 8 p.m. Now, London is at such a high latitude that at that time of the evening in spring, opposite the winter solstice, it was like the brightness of day. Well, who wants to turn in at that time when you are in London? We took the kids all back to the hotel, and then my roommates and I went out on town to become pub experts. We visited all the little sidewalk cafes and listened to the different languages. Couldn't understand most of them, but they were so kind. And we were having a wonderful time. It did not even start to get dark until well after 10:30. But before we knew it, it was 1 a.m. Oh my. We still had to get back to the hotel, get a good night's rest, and be ready for our next busy day of responsibilities. Rushing back to the hotel, we discovered that, oh my, none of us had a key to get back into our room. When we got to the lobby, I was the designated room key retrieval expert, giving the attendant our triple digit drama that had been playing in our heads. Then he said, "Okay, here's the key, ladies. It's 1:30 in the morning, and I have a headache. I can't handle any more of this stuff right now." I jumped up the stairs and could hardly wait to get into bed. Now, in those days, the key to our room was one of those big metal things. Put it into the keyhole and jiggle it around, hoping the door would open. As I was doing my best to unlock the door, I could hear rumblings inside the room. I turned to my roommates. "You know, there is someone in our room pilfering all of our stuff." I finally opened the door, turned up the lights, and there was a standing on the bed, yelling at us, jumping up and down, buck naked.
Naked.
I could not understand a thing he was saying, but I could tell he was living in his body. Frozen, eyes big as saucers, jaws dropped to the floor. Oh my, we had gone to the wrong room. We went back to the lobby where another registration attendant was on duty. We gave him 3 versions of our drama because we had to get to bed ASAP. He sat there calmly listening. "Indeed, now, ladies, thank you for coming to our hotel as guests. May I please see your passports?" We gave him our passports. He went over to the hotel registration roster and discovered that we had checked into room 413, not 313. As he gave us the key to our correct room, I leaned over the counter and said, "Thank you for being such an expert, a person that never lets pressure water down their responsibility to reconcile all unknown quantities." Today, as we approach the winter solstice, I am reminded of that unforgettable night that happened just opposite to the winter solstice and ask, what are the unknowns I need to reconcile to go from X to expert? What are the unknowns I need to reconcile, and how am I going to possibly even go from expert to X? Safe travels into the new year and good night.